Ready for your weekly tech fix? Want to know how technology sets us free? Well, get ready because here it comes. You're listening to Sovryn Tech with your host, entrepreneur and technophile Brian Sovryn. He's got a huge brain. And now, here's Brian.
Here I am, the man who always wears triple black, the golden stallion of the tech world, ready for another invigorating episode of Sovryn Tech. We have got, this is going to be kind of a rapid fire episode of Sovryn Tech, so let's get right into it with the very first story. And the very first story is, this is very exciting, the Microsoft Build Conference 2013 was this week, and they announced Windows 8.1 and showed it to everybody. Okay, that's it for that story. Let's move on to the next story. No, really, who cares? I mean, Microsoft is so far behind the times. I mean, it's insane. In fact, the Windows 8.1 thing, I've recently been fortunate enough to get a look at it and to see how it all operates. And, we put the start button back. Well, they didn't really put the start button back. They kind of did this weird thing. Probably the best thing that happened with Windows 8.1 is that they allow for you to boot directly into the desktop now. And there's already, if you want Windows 8 to work a little more like Windows 7 or Windows XP, there's apps out there or software that you can buy for like $5 that'll make everything go back to the way it was, which maybe I'll do those for like a software of the week at some point, because it's amazing how popular those apps are. I mean, there's people making big money off of simply forcing Microsoft to do pretty much what it's done for 20 years or so. But anyway, so not a whole lot to talk about there. There are new Microsoft phones coming out, of course. In fact, a lot of Sprint exclusives, which is kind of cool. I mean, not that if Windows Phone had more apps, maybe I'd look into it. But the closed source nature of it doesn't really attract me. But yeah, they have some very nice Sprint exclusives coming out. In fact, they even have what is essentially, from what I gather, is essentially a HTC One, which is a great Android phone. They have a model of HTC as a model of that coming out with Windows Phone 8 on it. So that's cool, but really there's just not a whole lot to talk about as far as the Microsoft Build Conference. Not like with the WWDC for Apple or for Google I/O. I mean, those were huge this year. So anyway, let's get on to the next story. In this next story, I'm going to do my best to keep calm and cool and collected during this, because this is really, really infuriating stuff, which actually feeds completely into my confirmation bias. And this is about Facebook. And this article is from ZDNet, of course, by Violet Blue, which, if you don't know who Violet Blue is, she may be kind of if you remember the Matrix trilogy, she may be the real-life Trinity. I mean, she's that good. She's a genuine hacker. She's the real deal. If you're not following her on Twitter, she doesn't have a Facebook account, never has. If you want to follow her on Twitter or on Google+, that's out there, and you can find out how to do that through this link in the show notes for the story. Anger mounts after Facebook's shadow profiles leak in bug. What? What are shadow profiles? Well, we're going to read this. Friday, Facebook announced, again, this is from like June 24th, this is about a week, maybe a week and a half old. So anyway, Friday, Facebook announced the fix of a bug. It said inadvertently exposed the private information of over 6 million users when Facebook's previously unknown shadow profiles accidentally merged with user accounts in data history record requests. According to Reuters, the data leak spanned a year beginning in 2012. The personal information leaked by the bug is information that had not been given to Facebook by the users. It is data Facebook has been compiling on its users behind closed doors without their consent. A growing number of Facebook users are furious and demand to know who saw private information they had expressly not given to Facebook. Facebook was accidentally combining users' shadow profiles with their Facebook profiles and spitting the merged information out in one big clump to people they had some connection to, quote-unquote, who downloaded an archive of their account with Facebook's Download Your Information tool. According to the admissions in its blog posted late Friday afternoon, Facebook appears to be obtaining users' off-site email address and phone numbers and attempting to match them to other accounts. It appears that the covertly collected information is then being stored in each Facebook user's invisible shadow profile that is somehow attached to accounts. Users who were clearly unaware that off-site data about them was being collected, matched to them, and stored by Facebook. Looking at comments on Facebook's blog and community websites such as Hacker News, Facebook users are extremely angry that the phone numbers and email addresses that are not for sharing have been gathered and saved and now accidentally shared by Facebook. Facebook stated in its post yesterday that the bug was resolved, but Facebook users are telling a different story today in the comments. One man commented this afternoon, "I just downloaded the extended backup, and I'm still the extended backup, and I'm still viewing emails and phone numbers that are not public." Facebook explained in its post that the bug shared information about a user that had been scraped from a source other than the personal data the user had ever entered into Facebook about themselves. The action of the bug is that if a user downloaded their own Facebook history, that user would also download email addresses and phone numbers of their friends that other people had in their address books without their friends ever knowing Facebook had gathered and stored that information. This data is being gathered by Facebook about individuals through their friends' information about them, harvested when a user grants Facebook address book or contact list access. Facebook did not specify which app or contact database tool was utilized when collecting and matching off-site sourced data about users. The social network said that it was harvesting and matching the off-site sourced data to user profiles, creating these shadow profiles to better create friend suggestions for the user. Okay, real quick. They're not defending you from terrorists. They're not trying to keep you safe. They're doing all of this, all the same stuff that the NSA is doing through Prism. There, see, I've already lost my cool. To better create friend suggestions for the user. Are you kidding me? Let's move on a little more. Facebook users are definitely reading between the lines. One commenter on Hacker News observed wisely, "The blog says the fix was made in the Download Your Information tool. That means they would continue to maintain shadow profiles, but would stop letting others know that FB has a shadow profile on you." Facebook's post downplays the significance of the data breach by telling users that while 6 million accounts were exposed, very few people saw the personal phone and email data because it could only be seen when a user downloaded their Facebook history. All right, now real quick, admittedly, 6 million users in terms of Facebook is small potatoes. Okay, because Facebook has, what, 1 billion users, literally? So 6 million in the grand scheme of things is pretty small, but really, does the amount, when does it become okay, or when does it become not okay? 500,000 users? 1 million users? One user? My opinion, one user gets stuff transmitted that they did not consent to? That's bad enough. Just one. It doesn't take that many. 6 million is bad enough. One is bad enough. The social giant assured users their shadow profiles were shared only with Facebook users they were somehow connected to. If a person went to download an archive of their Facebook account through our Download Your Information tool, they may have been provided with additional email addresses or telephone numbers for their contacts or people with whom they have some connection. Facebook did not specify in its post what is meant by somehow connected to, and comment speculation is attempting to fill in the gaps. According to Reuters, who spoke with a Facebook representative, the data was being exposed in this manner for about a year. What the revelation means is that Facebook has much more information on us than we know. It may not be accurate, and despite everyone's best efforts to keep Facebook from knowing our phone numbers or work email address, the social network is getting our not-for-sharing numbers and email addresses anyway by stealing them, albeit through quote-unquote legitimate means, from our friends. The year-long gap of exposure, as described by the Reuters, creates a scenario of horrifying possibilities for any woman who begun to experience harassment, abuse, or stalking by an ex within the past year, or anyone being maliciously stalked and harassed by a tech-savvy aggressor or a stalker's Facebook sock puppet, they may have accidentally friended over the past year. This could be remedied, and harm would be greatly reduced if Facebook addressed and answered the growing demands of its users to know who has seen their non-Facebook private data. What it means for me is that even though I've been very careful not to give my phone number to Facebook or the men in my quote-unquote friends list, the guys I've friended might have gotten my phone number anyway, regardless of my consent. I did not know they may have been able to get my phone number throughout the course of a year, and now I have no way of finding out who might have gotten my phone number. I am glad I've never used a Facebook app or allowed Facebook access to my contacts in any way whatsoever. The private numbers and emails of my friends and colleagues should remain exactly that, private. Facebook has officially stated that it does not know of any malicious use derived from the bug. This appears to be the first time Facebook has publicly admitted that users' shadow profiles contain more than native data, such as posts or information you deleted but are retained by Facebook. It also contains data that Facebook has harvested. Meanwhile, anger continues to rise on the Facebook post, and as of this writing, there are no representatives from Facebook in the comments to quell the storm. Now, here's a little bit of there's a couple updates here made on this story specifically, and I'll read those. In an email today from Facebook Policy Communications, ZDNet learned that concern about collection, storage, and shadow profiling of contact data is the sole fault of users who failed to read or remember the Facebook policies they agreed to when they were getting started on Facebook. Facebook said that users should already know about the contact collection practices because they are told about it on this page. There's a link. It states that their address book contacts will be saved to Facebook servers and stored, then used in cross-matching contact data to other users. In quotes, however, or in parentheses, however, I'd be remiss not to point out that this page does not tell users they are agreeing to have this type of data collection done about them as well. Facebook did not directly answer my request for a statement in response to user anger regarding data being collected about them and attached to their accounts without their consent, that being the shadow profiles. In answer to this question, Facebook again directs users to reread the Finding Friends section of the Help Center. Facebook's emails did help to clarify some aspects of its users' shadow profiles. Users combine data. Facebook's representative told me that the data is not obtained through an app or database tool. Data about you is obtained by the seemingly innocuous voluntary actions on Facebook of people you know. In Facebook's explanation, it is obtaining data on individuals in a form of third-party collection through voluntary user submission. It is reasonable to conclude that the data is only involuntarily collected and saved for the people the data is matched to, in this case, the 6 million accounts that were affected. Facebook said that it would take precise and coincidental timing for a malicious person to use the DIY tool with intent and obtain Facebook's combined shadow profile data on a targeted user. Yet we know the bug was live for a year, and combined with Facebook's admission on the blog post regarding false positive, it's a fair guess on our side to suspect that a non-trivial risk remained. Facebook did not respond to my request for a statement regarding user demands to know who had seen their shadow profile contact information. And let's see, they added some links to look at shadow profiles and what they're all about. This is crazy because, Leo Laporte talked about this on Twit last week, and in it he says, look, I mean, actually, first off, he said anybody listening to Twit, anybody in the studio audience, anybody that's downloading the podcast and listening to it, go to facebook.com right away, go up to the top right corner, click delete profile, and get off there. Leo Laporte, president of the internet. Not that I care for any kind of leadership role, but if there was a president of the internet, quite frankly, I'll agree. It might as well be him. And part of the reason he said that, I mean, he was livid. He said Facebook has gone too far this time. They've just gone too far. And this is well after any, Facebook's responses, like to Violet Blue, about, why they said they were doing it and how it was all done. Okay, so they said that they weren't using an app to collect this information, and they weren't using some kind of data collection software to do it. But then they never really told you how they were doing it in the first place anyway. So there's still no answer to that question. But Leo Laporte made a great point, and I can, I can to some degree, agree with this, is that Leo has, private phone numbers and email addresses for some celebrities, some, quote unquote, very important people. Okay, that really, really need and want their privacy. And please, if you don't understand why celebrities need their privacy, I mean, they're just doing, like an actor's just doing their job. You say, oh, well, they're out there, they're asking for it. No, they're not. Okay, or even like some kind of author, well, they're out there, they're putting themselves out there. They're asking, they don't have the right to privacy if they want it. Yes, they do. If they want it and they're willing to work for it, yes, they do. But this is the thing. How can you work for this? So I have some big names on my phone. I've got Robert Scoble on my phone. I've got a whole bunch of people on my phone, people of some degree of repute. And so now that I put the Facebook app on, or that I've used Facebook on my phone, Facebook has all that information. And if someone downloaded, did the DIY thing, download your information tool, and somehow got connections with me and grabbed their numbers off of my phone, how did Robert Scoble consent to that? I have his number. He gave it to me in confidence. How did he consent to that? He couldn't have. I don't, and I could play a real quick Constitution card and say, hey, where's the Fourth Amendment on Facebook? But then, of course, the government doesn't care about that either, because this is exactly what the NSA is doing. But there's one of my biggest problems with this whole situation is that, okay, fine, let's say the NSA has to do it. Or that the American people wanted them to do it. Why are they wanting them to do it? So they can be safe, because they're worried that someone's going to come and take out a couple more buildings, okay? Or they're worried, that China's going to pull some kind of, thermonuclear stunt or something. Well, all of which is ridiculous. But anyway, let's say they were concerned about that. So they want their government to keep an eye on things, on foreign communications going in and out of the country, blah, blah, blah. Okay, fine. Let's say all that's okay. Fine, that's okay. But why is Facebook doing this? What purpose did they have to collect all this information? Well, we got to be ready for the next person that wants to create a Facebook page, and we want them to have a wonderful experience when it comes out. At the risk, like Violet Blue was talking about, at the risk of some creeper, some stalker getting her phone number? No. Absolutely not. This is atrocious. I've said on this show many times, I'm not a person, I don't care about my privacy. But I will wholeheartedly respect anyone else's wishes about privacy and secrecy. Okay? Wholeheartedly will I do that. And now with Facebook, if I want to use Facebook, I can't guarantee that secrecy to my friends or to my acquaintances. No, I can't. Yeah, I get it. I mean, all that information's out there anyway. The instant you use the internet, you're out there. I'm the first person to say that, and I totally agree that you really can't have any kind of anonymity. But that's talking about with the government, okay, with people that are just tyrants and thugs that are just constantly collecting information on you. Here's the problem. Your average Joe can find this stuff. With what legal recourse? You don't have any. I'm waiting for the case. I'm waiting for the case when someone says, hey, look, I have this restraining order out on my ex. I've been, keeping everything really secret. This woman or guy is crazy, and I've played all my cards right and tried to keep them from finding me. I didn't make a Facebook page, but because a friend of mine had my phone number and my email address, who is on Facebook, who might have been a friend of a friend of a friend on Facebook, they got my information. And I never, ever, ever went anywhere near Facebook to even put my phone number out there. But what? Oh, now I can't give my number to friends? Come on. I consider it worse. This isn't even about terrorists. This is where you become personally in danger. from a person who doesn't live 3,000 miles away, but a person who might live 100 or 50. And you say, well, it's only 6 million users, and it's only been going on for a year. Bad enough. Bad enough, in my opinion. Now, maybe in the next month, it'll come out that this has happened on Google+. I doubt it. Maybe, in the next month, it'll come out that this is happening on Twitter. Maybe. But I don't think so. And also, one of the first things I'm sure a lot of people are going to say also is that, well, what, you think Google's not doing something like shadow profiles? You think Google's not doing this too? I'm sure they are to some degree. But then at the same time, in every piece of Google software, on every Google service, you can go into the settings and there's always a checkbox that says, stop collecting. Don't collect on me. There's even, you can download, there's the Google, just for the ads that you get that are based upon your searches, Google AdSense, how Google makes all their money. You can even get an opt-out cookie that you can install on your computer that says, don't collect on me and don't show. Don't show me, my personalized results and all that. You can turn it all off. That's the difference. With Google, you're aware, you're told, and all of it can be turned off. In fact, some people are like, well, Google Plus, it's getting, it's taking over Google way too much. You can delete your entire Google Plus account, and then you can still use all the other Google services. You can still use Gmail. You can still use the incredible Google Play Music. Go down the list of services, and you can still use them all. You can turn it all off, and they put it right out in front. Like when you install something, it says, do you want Google to collect data? You can uncheck no, and you can still install the software. Facebook gives you no options like that, not even close. This is 10 times worse. Something I really hated was when Facebook, and this was kind of like the start of my decline with using Facebook, because there was a little while where I really enjoyed it. But when they, with the message system, when they put in to where another person, like say the person you're private messaging, when they put it in so that person would get a little notification on the bottom that says seen, like that that they saw what you posted, I was like, wow, that's crazy. That defeats the whole purpose of texting. Texting is so that I can handle the information in my own time, but now you're making this really awkward situation. Fortunately, there was at least software that put a stop to that. There's a program called Chat Undetected that'll keep that from happening, but it only works in the browser. If you do it from your phone, you can't keep people from seeing that you saw. I'm tempted to go delete my Facebook account. How about you? If you do so, send me an email, let me know. I'd be interested to hear about it. I'll be back with more.
Tech Roulette. Want to play?
It is time for Tech Roulette, where I cover stories that are sent to me by listeners through the various ways that you can get in touch with the show. Those include SovrynTech at hush.ai, which is the main email address for the show. You can also go to sovryntech.com, and there's a section on the right side where you can say submit a post or even ask a question, which we can get to either in Tech Roulette or in the listener email section of the show, which is coming up. We got a great listener email this week. I mean, really, really good stuff. But this week, this actually came from... we talked a little bit about more than a little bit. We talked about social media in the last segment, and from Google Plus, which I actually offer up my personal Google Plus page within which you can get in touch with me on the show. And also on Google Plus, there is, and this, I don't tout this as much as I think I really should be doing so on the show. There's the SovrynTech Balnea, which is a Google Plus community, which has gotten quite a bit of action recently. I mean, it's always, some good stories have been posted there, but recently there's been some other ones. And this story is actually from a great friend, Zeke. And it's really something. It's from examiner.com. And I like examiner.com because they'll talk about, sometimes they'll post up stories that really I think any other news site would be a little afraid to even touch. And this this story is also actually by a friend, actually, and certainly a friend of the show, and that's Davi Barker. And this is he's known as the Muslim agorist, and just a great guy all the way around. He runs Bitcoins Not Bombs. That's something that you can Google and check out if you don't know what that is. And this article is about Bitcoin, and it's Wake Up, Bitcoin is an Alien Invasion. So Bitcoin's an alien invasion. Well, anyway, let's find out what this is about. This week, I received the most delicious piece of conspiracy ranting from an anonymous source. I just don't think I can improve it in the slightest, even if I corrected the spelling, so I'm just going to republish it faithfully. This is from the Silver Underground crew, or this is to the Silver Underground crew. Bitcoin is a new digital money popular to hackers and anonymous, but now it's getting attention from bankers and Wall Street types too. Hackers and computer programmer experts who have analyzed the Bitcoin code program have described it as alien technology, quote unquote. They are just trying to express how sophisticated the program is, but do the research yourself and you'll see that this is no joke. Never mind that nobody knows who the anonymous hacker Jesus Satoshi Nakamoto is, who created Bitcoin, and never mind that the only popular faces of Satoshi Nakamoto look disturbingly like the ancient faces on Mars. Everyone said that the singularity of the Mayan calendar would signal the arrival of the rogue planet X. Planet X, and the fulfillment of prophecy. And now everyone is laughing that nothing happened, but they'll be the last laugh when they realize the truth. Bear in mind, this is not Davi Barker speaking. This is information that he received. So, he's not believing any of this. The invasion has already begun, but we were fools believe, little typos again, that flying saucers would fly over major cities like this was a movie. This doesn't make sense because of the reality of space travel. Everything travels through space at different top velocities. Beings in the physical vibration travel much slower than beings in the energy vibration. That means that long before the physical arrival of the reptilians, like the Jews, the signal... Some of you may know I have a little bit of a history of being called a reptilian, but or being accused of being a reptilian. But anyway, the signals of the reptilians will reach us. That's just physics. But if we receive signals from them, we'll be ready for them, and they know that. So the signals themselves are crafted as an attack. This is a reference to the idea of not extraterrestrials, but what's called ultra-terrestrials, where they're not coming from another planet, they're actually coming from another dimension. But anyway, we'll keep going with the story. Bitcoin is the signal. Bitcoin arrived on Earth from unknown origin, immediately proliferated on the internet, and if you know anything about the Illuminati, you know that the internet is part of Skynet. Skynet being the fictional computer network or computer leader, essentially, from the Terminator films that's trying to wipe out humanity. The internet was invented to acclimate us to digital world, and Bitcoin was invented to substitute for gold in the digital world. Remember, the reptilians want gold. The Sumerians knew this. The rogue planet Nibiru, or Planet X, has an elliptical orbit that goes within Earth's orbit every 3,600 years. Nibiru is the home of the reptilians, also known as the Anunnaki, which in Sumerian, this article isn't saying it, but which in Sumerian means from those who from heaven to earth came. Who came to Earth and genetically altered Homo sapiens to crave gold, to mine gold for them. They use genetic manipulation to make slaves out of us, but they're coming back to collect, and if mankind still craves gold when they do, there's going to be a war on their hands. The Bitcoin signal was created to trigger latent genetic codes in our gold-craving genetic program. Bitcoin satisfies the gold-craving genetic code and tricks humans into accepting a synthetic substitute, like aspartame and sugar. So when they arrive, they can take the gold without fighting us for it. The Bitcoin system is based on consensus. They say it can't be manipulated by a central planner because in order to make any changes to the Bitcoin system, you have to get adoption of the program change by the majority or users. But that's assuming a closed system here on Earth. What happens when 1 million Bitcoin users with 1 million Bitcoin nodes and 1 million Bitcoin mines all arrive at once from Nibiru? I'll tell you. They control the Bitcoin system. The reptilians are coming, and they're bringing Bitcoin consensus with them. And when they get here, they're buying all the gold. The 2012 awakening of Earth has begun, too, and it's the rebels, nonconformists, and those exhibiting personal sovereignty who become the light warriors. It's no coincidence that light warriors might be a reference to a book, a text that the... oh wow, that's terrible that their name is escaping me. Not the Pharisees, not the Sadducees, the Essenes. There we go. The Essenes, they called themselves the light warriors for when the forces of darkness were coming. But anyway, sorry. It's no coincidence that Bitcoin appeals most to these subcultures. Slaves of the reptilians already run our governments and our corporations and banking systems. We've already been invaded by asteroids and clones, or androids and clones that walk among us but don't have souls. And Bitcoin Signal is designed to spread that control into the rebel currency sphere to take control of the planet. But there's something we can do. Beginning with the singularity, the Earth began being bombarded by highly charged particles that will result in a revolution of consciousness and activate the special gifts of everyone on the angelic human path. And that's it. Davi doesn't give any comment on it. He just, says, here you go, read this. Oh boy. Where do you even start with that? Obviously the person gives, no sources. What sources can there be? Because, if they believe in the reptilian conspiracy, which has been popularized by David Icke, according to David Icke, if you read a book like, what was it called? Human Race, Get Off Your Knees, or The Lion Sleeps No More, I think is the name of the book. And bear in mind, I do Sovryn Tech generally from memory. It's very, very rare. In fact, I don't think I've ever done it where I will look it up, like where I'll punch up Wikipedia on the computer in front of me and look it up. I really want to go from memory. It's good exercise for me. And maybe it somehow parlays that I'm kind of a smart guy, but anyway, so in many of David Icke's books, he talks about this reptilian conspiracy, where, and it leads off from the idea that thousands of years ago, like there's serpent and reptile worship by humans all over the world. And it's true. There is, there's plenty of, of different religions where some kind of serpent or reptile, is the mainstay, is somehow an important part. Even in the Bible, I mean, what did Eve get tempted by? She was tempted by a serpent, to eat from the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. So David Icke takes it to mean that there was literally serpents, or reptilian humanoids that were walking the earth, and that they, that they're the same as these Anunnaki that also were talked about by the Sumerians, that were supposedly the gods worshipped by the Sumerians. Anyway, I'm getting way off track and just trying to explain a lot of this stuff. I've talked about this stuff to some degree on the show. The reptilian thing, I think, is just absolutely nuts. But as far as, the Bitcoin, the idea that Bitcoin is alien technology, I find it humorous that someone came up with this, and I wonder which one came first in this chicken and egg. There was a very popular meme going around a couple of years ago, or maybe a year ago, on Facebook and Google Plus and Twitter, or, wherever. There was a meme going around where it was a picture of a gray, the aliens, they're called the Greys. And it was about like dubstep. And it said, it's like, hey, they we're sending out, we're trying to contact this race, and they think it's dubstep when they hear it. And so when they say that, you see, Bitcoin is the signal. Bitcoin is this transmission. It's the signal coming from this, from these aliens. I wonder how relative those two ideas are. And in fact, I wonder if there's a meme that may have even gone around where, it's like, hey, we're trying to contact these humans, but they think it's Bitcoin or something. I wonder if somebody pulled that one off. But anyway, yeah, so the idea, a lot of people do hold to that idea. Pretty much everything in this article isn't like really, it's funny. It's just hilarious when you get done reading it, obviously. But none of it's like really original. This person, other than the idea that Bitcoin is, an alien signal. Otherwise, all the ideas are, stuff that's been well trodden and well, and some of it's up to debate. I mean, okay, I don't think reptilians are running the world, but the gold question is a great question because, and that's the funny thing is like, what's the solution that this person wants to go for? Does he want to to hoard all the gold so that the reptilians can't have it? Or I mean, like I'm trying to figure where this person's even coming from. Or of course, if they're looking for that, what was it called? The angelic human path. Maybe they just they want to get rid of money in its entirety. And, to some degree, I know this might sound shocking to some. I'm not totally opposed to that, as a solution for economic problems. I know someone's going to want to know, what do I mean by that? You're going to have to email me if you want to hear it, and say, hey, what did you mean by, you wouldn't mind if money went away? Anyway, so... the gold question is a great question. Why and I've asked it on the show before. In fact, in the Bitcoin special that I did for Sovryn Tech, I asked the big question, who says gold's worth anything? Why is it worth anything? And it's the same shtick. Well, it has intrinsic value. A lot of people use it. It's pretty, blah, blah, blah. Well, a lot of people use it for what? Oh, for electronics. So in Samaria, they used it for electronics. That doesn't make any sense. No. Well, I mean, actually, it might make sense. Maybe they had some electronics. There's the Baghdad battery. That's something, that one might find interesting. So what is the importance to gold? And I don't think there's a good answer. And to say it's pretty and that it lasts, in my opinion, is so unacceptable, and it's so insulting to humans, especially humans that out of nowhere came up with base 60 math, to say that, oh, pretty. What are they, children? No, they're not children. They invented writing and math inside of in no time at all. And you'd think that they'd somehow just be enamored by something that looks nice. You've got a logical leap. You have a real. There's a leap there that you're missing, that you're going on, and that suddenly they were people that didn't care and were just simple, maybe just starting to farm, and then suddenly they create an entire culture. But do you get what I'm saying? I hate it when I ask that question, but. But anyway, the gold thing doesn't have a good answer. But is the answer to Bitcoins that it's a reptilian, that it's a reptilian conspiracy, that they're going to control everything and then they're going to control the economy? Is this out of the book of Revelation where it says that, if you don't have the mark of the beast, you won't be able to buy or sell, and thus if Bitcoin is, since it's digital, you have to have a private key, which could be the mark of the beast, and that mark of the, without that, because money will no longer be a part, because normal analog standard money that you cold hard cash that you can hold in your hand, or gold or silver that you can actually hold or break up and give to somebody, because none of that will be in use and everything will be Bitcoin, that's the book of Revelation, that's the mark of the beast, that's the reptilians taking over. I guess if you think that, I don't, this person obviously thinks that sort of thing. And it's really unfortunate. And I understand, maybe the person's wanting, they want, you can't touch or taste Bitcoin, and I can see where someone would feel very insecure about that. I understand, a great writer, Harlan Ellison. He actually, this is one of the most prolific writers in the world ever, still alive today, pushing 80. And he said, he's like, I don't use a computer. I just don't. And his reasons for not using a computer were because he said he wants to see when he types something out on a typewriter, it exists in the world. It's there. It's real. You can touch it. You can read it. It can't go away. It can't be deleted. I mean, it can be burned, obviously, right? But it can't be deleted. And I understand that. I really do. And I respect that. I get the idea that you want something tangible, okay? And maybe that's where a lot of this fear is coming from. But really, I mean, reptilians, you know, and I don't know, and it's funny too, because like, how can you even disprove reptilians to people? You know, I like to think that with logic and reason that you can actually really reason with anybody, but sometimes I question that. You know, I mean, like sometimes with say Christians, or really any kind of really fundamentalist religion, I don't know how you can convince them of otherwise. You know, and I don't blame people for walking away and laughing. You know, you hear stories a lot of times of these kids who are being raised in these great families by great parents, that, you know, where they're being unschooled, you know, and their parents are like atheists, and they're doing their best to not affect the wings of the butterfly, that being the child. And it's funny because what the stories that I hear firsthand are that these kids will like talk to their grandparents who may be religious, and they'll laugh at them when they start telling them about Jesus Christ. Because, oh, what? They'll say that's ridiculous. Who would believe that sort of thing? You know, and so anyway, so I think when a person is like that enamored, that deep into reptilians or God, or, you know, like this person was talking about the angelic path, you know, or all this stuff, I find it very, very difficult to somehow convince them otherwise. And it's funny because they're trying to convince everybody, and they're failing at it too, obviously. I mean, you know, like the whole wake up sheeple, you know, that whole thing, and that never works. I mean, that's an instant turnoff when someone says that. So yeah, I mean, you know, I wouldn't even know if I was talking to this person, I wouldn't even know really what to say to them. I could relate in that I understand all their lingo. You know, I'm very, very well versed. I know Davy Barker is too, very, very well versed in conspiracy stuff. But anyway, I read it mainly to have a laugh, but it is pretty wild. So Bitcoin's alien conspiracy. But hey, if you like the aliens more than you like the humans, well, go Bitcoin. I'll be back with more.
Wow! Oh. It's a website of the week.
It is time for Website of the Week, where I cover interesting websites, you know, that I find interesting or that I think might be something useful for my listeners. And I get a lot of questions, and one of these days I'm going to do a full-on special about this. And actually, I have some people that I met at PorcFest that I'd love to have, that I'm planning on and would love to have on the show to talk about transhumanism. Transhumanism is very much the future. I think it may be the single most important part of, and if you want to call it an action, that will get rid of the state. I consider it number one, as far like the number one goal to achieve, is transhumanism. Not freedom of, you know, not economic freedom, not you know, all these different kind of freedoms. I mean, you'll get those, we will get those eventually, but I think the key to all of it is getting freedom from death, and freedom from sickness and illness, and transhumanism is the answer to all of that. Because the one thing you can't buy, the one thing the economy will not give you, well, I mean, it can indirectly because of, you know, because it can push transhumanist technologies, is time. And so if we can get, you know, relatively unlimited or at least extended time, let's do it. So anyway, here's a couple of blogs for you to check out if you need to satiate your thirst for you know, information about transhumanism. One of them is immortallife.info. And this is a personal favorite. Some of the languages, it's from all over the world, so some of the articles are in, you know, they're in different languages, but fortunately Google Translate takes care of that with no problem. But you have, which that's kind of a transhumanist technology in and of itself, but great articles like Death is Not My Brain's Friend. I Believe in Neurology, Not in God. I mean, what a great name for an article. Death Costs the World a Lot of Opportunity. There's tons of articles on this one. And then another one, so you're getting a double load of Website of the Week, because these are so close together and tied together, is transhumanity.net. And again, other great articles. The future is scientific. You even get H+. H+ is that's like the symbol for transhumanism. But there's poetry about it. Life extension leads to meaningless days? No, says the writer of that article on the blog. So a couple of great blogs, immortallife.info and transhumanity.net. Check them out. And they have, and the other nice thing is too with these blogs is there's awesome links to some pretty unknown and like kind of rare transhumanist works and books. There's lots of resources to connect with. There's all kind, like they even do postings like on immortallife.info. They give you the links to various like groups that you can join, say on Facebook, even though, why are we on Facebook? But for like Google Plus communities, all all over the place. These are just two huge, really great resources. And transhumanity.net actually has recently been promoting something called Zero State, which has to do with there not being a government. And I find that very interesting, but I don't know, they might be more of the syndicalist persuasion as far as anarchy goes, if they're looking for there not to be a state. So I haven't looked into that enough, but you can as well. But either way, the articles they're priceless. Great thinking going on, because there's a lot of debate to have, not just scientific, but philosophical debates to have about transhumanity, and they're all here. So check it out, immortallife.info and transhumanity.net. Those are your websites of the week. You got two of them. Exciting. I'll be back with more. This is Brian Sovryn.
For 90 Seconds on Sex with Dr. Paul.
Thanks to internet porn, women are not only shaving their crotches bare, but for the first time in the history of the human race, some women are asking surgeons to cosmetically trim their inner labia so that they can look like the labia of porn actresses. Well, fortunately, some physicians decided that, we needed to know more about the inner labia before we go haphazardly trimming them off. So they studied the inner labia of girls who'd had to have the edges of their labia trimmed off because they'd been fused at birth. Through some very complex microscopic tissue analysis, these researchers discovered that the edges of the inner labia are highly innervated, and that the inner labia are made of specialized tissue that becomes engorged when a woman is sexually aroused. In fact, based on how the inner labia are constructed, they speculated that touching and caressing the inner labia can be an important way to signal the brain to make women's genitals ready for intercourse. Not only should this new research give pause to women and surgeons who want to cosmetically trim off the edges of the inner labia, but it should also be a reminder to anyone who's making love to a woman that spending an extra 5 or 10 minutes teasing and caressing her inner labia could be time that's very well spent.
For more, visit 90secondsonsex.com.
It is time for listener emails, a section of the show that's getting a lot of great response. People are enjoying everything that's getting brought up, as well as getting, I have, and please keep sending them. Send those emails, sovereigntech@hush.ai, or you can even ask me the question, ask me in the Sovereign Tech Bell, NEA, or on Google Plus in general. Anywhere, or even at sovereigntech.com, you can ask me a question. Send me the question any way you want, and I will keep you anonymous if you wish. In that case, you probably want to go through sovereigntech@hush.ai, which, little known fact, part of the reason I use Hushmail is that if you want to send me a question and you want it to be encrypted, Hushmail can actually handle that. So that's part of the reason for Sovryn Tech that I use Sovryn Tech at Hush.ai, because it was the easiest rollout I had to send encrypted emails. And I can send encrypted emails back to you. So all you have to do is just let me know, hey, I want this all encrypted. I want this quiet. Also, I do use BitMessage, even though I haven't checked it this week at all. I've been very, very busy recently, insanely busy the past couple weeks, really. And I'll probably be insanely busy for the next few months in the foreseeable future. But anyway, so there's all those options for you to get in touch with me. You can find them all in the show notes, just in case you can't remember them after listening to the show. And this week I got a great email, and because last week I was talking about PorcFest and my reactions to PorcFest and my thoughts on it. And this email comes from Hannah Hoffman, who actually I've featured her website, hannahhoffman.net, as a website of the week in the past. Just a tremendous, very talented musician, and in my opinion, just a tremendous person in general. And so I'm very, very honored, that she sent this email in, and she specifically said, hey, you can mention that I sent this, and that's great. So let's get right into the email here. Hey, Brian, I'm listening to episode 28 of Sovryn Tech, in which you share your excitement regarding the various forms of sexual expressiveness/openness at PorcFest. You describe the libertinism of Buzz's Big Gay Dance Party, where attendees reveal their wild side, dressing and dancing in a sexual manner, alluding to sexual acts and bodily organs. You also describe the atmosphere of the sex dome, which, as I understand from your description, encourages public sex acts. As someone who feels positively toward sexuality and homosexuality, I want to explain why I feel uncomfortable with this type of libertinism. I have no problem discussing sex. It's a healthy behavior and, to me, just another topic. But there's a difference between talking about sex and revealing personal information regarding one's sexual practices. In the same way that I don't want to watch my parents having sex or hear about their sex lives, I don't want to watch strangers engaging in or imitating sex. Sex is personal, and seeing it on public display cheapens its intimacy for me. I also feel disgusted seeing or imagining people I'm not attracted to engaging in sex. On the other hand, I'm glad that a significant percentage of people attending PorcFest feel comfortable with their sexuality. I just want to clarify the distinction between prudishness and privateness. Hannah. And thank you again so much for that email. Great points. And yeah, real quick, for those who don't understand, Hannah keeps using the word libertinism. I use it as well. My definition of libertinism, and I imagine the reason that she used it is because I often call myself a libertine. And my definition of libertinism is there's some people who take it as, all bets are off, let's do tons of drugs and drink and all that stuff, wild, rampant sex everywhere. A couple of those things I personally wouldn't do, the drugs and the drinking and all that, that aspect of libertinism I personally have no interest in. But otherwise, the idea, a lot of people will, let's see, if you read like the Masonic Constitution written by Benjamin Franklin, he talks about libertines as like people without any like order. And okay, I'll take on that. I'll take on, that description. Or if you read a lot of stuff from, say, the Mises Institute, where they talk about libertines, they essentially describe them as people who have no social conservatism. And that's where I do like the phrase, is that it's a lack of social conservatism as far as libertinism goes. Now, that's really where I describe it, because I see social conservatism as just this incredible danger. That is really a danger, and it's something that is inadvertently and advertently holding down lots of people from achieving happiness in their life. And anyone that's listened to the show for a while, should be well aware of that. Or if you listen to me on Free Talk Live, I express the same constantly. But to get into, okay, so that kind of libertinism, the idea that people could essentially maybe, just like have sex, like you could just be walking down the street and there'd be someone, in front of a store, outside, having sex. I'll admit, like, if that was happening, and it's happened. I mean, I lived in Van Nuys for a while in California, and I've walked by streets where people are, literally, like, say, in an alleyway, they're having a good time. So I mean, that this stuff does happen. And I mean, I guess that's not the same because maybe they're in an alley, whatever, at night, and that gets into a whole other can of worms. But yeah, I didn't feel uncomfortable. I'll admit, and like this is a really tough question because on one end, I completely understand like that someone doesn't want to see, anybody, especially like I don't want to see my parents doing it, for crying out loud. I really don't. And all that going on, really out in the open. I think admittedly, I think that if there wasn't such a mystique and such a cultural pressure that all this needs to be done in behind closed doors, all sexuality and expression of sexuality needs to be very private. I think if that wasn't there, oddly enough, it would still be private, because I think some of the attraction for people, even for me, I'll admit this, I am definitely reacting many times, even in just what I express, I am reacting to a socially conservative culture. Now, I'm in no way saying, I mean, I don't believe Hannah Hoffman's socially conservative by any stretch of the imagination. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying in general, the people, not my listeners, I'm saying in general, the people are socially conservative, and there is a kind of an in-your-face fun. It's almost like, it's like the kid that gets a tattoo because their parents hate tattoos. Okay. And so I think that if we just got rid of that, if that cultural conservatism went away, I think that it would still be like, it would be maybe even more private, because it just wouldn't be a big deal anymore. Or maybe it would be kind of open. Or maybe, if we lived in the world, there's a lot of people who are into, nudism and which I'm all for that. Where there's people who say this, and I don't like the idea of this because it's kind of shaming, but I think there's truth to it, that if everybody walked around nude, a lot of people would be in much better shape. You know what I mean? They'd be in much better shape because, they'd be like, well, I can't hide this anymore. And so they'd want to look their best or something. But then maybe that wouldn't happen because people would be so open and open with each other that they'd get over these cultural hangups of beauty. And, they just run with it. I don't know. So, but it's a great point it really is about the idea of that there's a difference between being private and being a prude. And I fully support being private, with your sexuality. I really, really do. I probably wouldn't talk about it so much, because I mean, this show and some people talk about it, that wow, this show's like really sexual. This show probably wouldn't be so sexual if social conservatism didn't exist. That doesn't mean I'd be any less the libertine, or that I'd be any less, excited and so, desirous of sex. That wouldn't change. But it probably wouldn't be talked about so much because I wouldn't be reacting, to this push, to this conservative push. And when I think about it, when I read Hannah's email, yeah, it was kind of cool that there was just sort of like this one area, like the sex dome, where it's like, okay, yeah, here, there are no rules, and there are, or it doesn't have to be closed or things like that. I think more of the point that I was, and it's important to raise that, and it's important to clarify, because I think more what I'm looking for is that I want people to just be willing to at least even mention that it exists. But I think probably most of the people that that are especially at PorcFest are probably okay with at least somewhat talking about sex. But it's an odd thing, and it brings me to a strange point about, like, when I read in the email about not wanting to see your parents have sex. It's interesting, and because, again, I don't want to see my parents having sex either. I just don't. But it's interesting that, when the United States, we're talking a good, 150, 200 years ago, when actually most, or at least a lot of Americans that are making things happen, were libertines like myself. But not that the people I'm about to talk about were per se libertine. But back then, when there was a lot of Western expansion was going on, people were moving west, from the 13 colonies. They're moving west, and they were living in one-room log cabins. Okay, so these are literal studio apartments, or and many of them still stand. We know that they were one-room log cabins. Now, we also know how many people, often via letters or stories, we have all the proof in the world that we could possibly want, that in these one-room log cabins were families living. Mom and dad, sometimes 8, 10, 12 children, maybe less, maybe more. One-room log cabin, 8 to 12 children. And, what was going on? What was happening there? I think you know where I'm going with this, because there's 12 children. There's 8 to 12 children. That means the parents were definitely having sex, even after at least one kid. And, did they just tell the kids, okay, go run off into the forest for a while? Me and dad are going to be busy. So even, the prudishness, that's not even talking about the privateness, but just the prudishness, I think today is somehow like that's a product of so many things of the 20th century and the 20th century alone. That it's something, when I read the email, that thought came to my mind. And but anyway, so privateness is a good thing. Expressing your sexuality in a very intimate and private matter is equally a good thing. But and this is where I totally agree with Hannah on the idea that sex is just another topic. And that's exactly how I feel about it. I will admit for myself, and it comes through in this show, in Sovryn Tech and Free Talk Live and anywhere else I'm on, like Pork Therapy, that I am definitely being kind of in your face with sexuality, because I feel that it is so hampered and so pushed down. Anyway, great email. Thank you, Hannah, for emailing me. I'll be back with more.
Got an energy spike.
Launch. In the third age of mankind, an age plagued by an evil empire that seeks to destroy humanity, it is our last, best hope for peace. It is Babylon 5.
All fighter squadrons launched. Get us out of here.
Return fire.
Well, freeze them.
Watch Babylon 5.
You can watch Babylon 5 and experience the greatest show in television history. See the entire series completely free by going to thewb.com/shows/Babylon 5.
Software of the Week.
It is time for Software of the Week, where I cover a piece of software that I consider to be beneficial or maybe even terrible. But in this case, we're going to do, and last week I think we did one that was kind of ambiguous. It was Herd. It's called Herd. That's the app. It's for iOS. And it was all about like that you could essentially record everything going on around you, and you could access it like 5 minutes in the past if you ever needed to. Some people thought it was scary. Some people thought it was really cool. Anyway, this week, this is kind of an Android only, or I've only tested it on Android. And it does work across different chipsets for Android, which is great, like x86 and ARM processors and all that, and MIPS. And I consider this actually the best way, bar none, to torrent files, to torrent anything. I do this personally. I have my Galaxy Nexus, the almighty G-Nex, that I have from Sprint. And, of course, with Sprint, I have an unlimited plan, which, no doubt about it, I pay a premium for that. So, and then I don't know how well this would work. If you don't have Sprint or T-Mobile, this might not be the best way to, or maybe if you still have an unlimited plan with Verizon, this might still be feasible. But anyway, the app this week, the software of the week is Ttorrent Pro, and that's 2 T's, T, then Ttorrent Pro. And it's a torrent client, and it is great. It's not free. It's $3.99. It's worth every penny. This does everything that any desktop app does right out of the gate, and it doesn't have the ads like uTorrent does, and the speeds are amazing. It's totally configurable. I mean, it is unlimited speed. The only thing you're limited by is your connection, and you can use it over 3G. You can use it over Wi-Fi. That's the nice thing about cell phones, or even actually, I guess you could use this on a tablet too. But the nice thing about cell phones is that there's just a million ways to connect to data sources out there. But this is awesome, and here's the real key for me as to why Ttorrent is so good. It has IP filtering that you can turn on. What is IP filtering? IP filtering, it's a little known thing about torrents, is that actually a lot of, like the RIAA and the MPAA, a lot of these companies that hate torrenting because people are getting free music and free movies, what they'll do is they create, like, I'll call them COINTEL accounts. They create fake accounts that will put up a bunch of garbage data. They'll put up torrents, and they'll put up data in it that essentially will bog down your internet access, and it'll make you take even longer to download things, and so that's what's happening right now in the torrent world, is that a lot of these organizations and companies are fighting back, and they're using all these extra bits to somehow do it. You can look into IP filtering a little bit more, just type it in Google, but Ttorrent will filter out the IPs, so your downloads will actually come down faster. uTorrent, as far as I know, doesn't do this natively. And so I think this is fantastic, just a great way to torrent. Also because, you're not using anybody else's, Wi-Fi network, though you could if you wanted. And when you have an unlimited data plan, I mean, it's great. You might as well make the use of it. Like I said before, as far as like gigabytes a month that I use on my cell phone, it's got to be shy of 30 gig. Pretty much every month. And sometimes it hurts. Why does it hurt? Because I'll be torrenting while I'm walking down the street, and my phone will get hot, while it's in my pocket. Talk about a hot pocket. That's, because this it works. Ttorrent will run that fast, that hot, that it'll make, it'll really heat up your phone. Anyway, so the IP filtering, that's key. Look into that if you're not sure what that's all about. But Ttorrent, there's a link in the show notes, Ttorrent Pro. Check it out. It's worth $3.99. It is awesome. Go for it. I'll be back with more.
What does freedom mean? Tune in to LRN.FM to find out. LRN.FM is the Liberty Radio Network, a collection of live talk radio and podcasts, all coming from a principled pro-liberty perspective. LRN.FM show hosts aren't left, right, or conspiracy kooks. You can tune in 24/7 to LRN.FM via your phone, computer, satellite, and more. Listen free anytime at LRN.FM. That's LRN.FM.
Brian! Stop playing those video games!
Just a minute, Mom.
Game Talk.
It is time for Game Talk, my favorite section of the show, where we talk about video games, and we just talk about video games in general. Sometimes it's about how it can set you free. Sometimes it's just the general wonderful escapism, or sometimes it's the business end of it all. All kinds of aspects we talk about with games that I think actually, oddly enough, uniquely, I don't think that there's a lot of resources out there that talk about games in such a way. So, and at PorcFest recently, got a lot of positive response from people, from listeners saying, "Thank you for doing Game Talk." They want to hear it. Maybe maybe if I get more feedback on this, maybe I'll do like a specific show every once in a while, like a Sovryn Tech special that's just all about talking about games for a little while. And the nice thing about it is that you can kind of keep that anarchist perspective in mind when we talk about it. But anyway, let's get right into this. This is a story from Kotaku, and or just kind of a blog post, and I think it's really, really great. It's a little old, but worth reading in my opinion. It's from last year, from 2012, and it's by Jason Schreier. Let's worry about the games we already have. When I was a kid, my parents bought me a copy of Final Fantasy Legend II. This was okay for a while. It was a fun game. Then I found out there was a sequel. There's a Final Fantasy Legend III? I said to my mom, screaming. Why don't I have it? Things haven't changed all that much. I am driven, as I imagine you are driven, by a powerful, ever-consuming desire for the next big thing. There's some chunk of our brain, some lizardy chromosome that encourages us to read Kotaku and browse screenshots and watch trailers as we greedily anticipate all the great-looking video games that aren't out yet. I definitely fall prey to that. If you're anything like me, all it takes is a couple of minutes of game time for the apathy to hit. Oh, what's this? The next Final Fantasy? Another Dragon Quest? Okay. What's next? Before we've been played for a half an hour, we're ready for more. The other day, Nintendo sent over a copy of Paper Mario Sticker Star, which I'll be covering and reviewing right now. This is a game I'd been anticipating for close to a year now. I saw a hands-off presentation at E3. I played a demo at PAX. I couldn't wait to dig into it. Around the same time, I read Jeremy Parish's great review of Bravely Default Flying Fairy, a game that Square Enix really needs to announce for U.S. release already. For Final Fantasy IV Heroes of Light's spiritual sequels, Square has pushed the design sensibility forward by about a decade, tying together the feel of Final Fantasy IX, a whimsical-looking fantasy underscored by disaster and tragedy, the visuals of Saga Frontier 2, beautiful hand-drawn backdrops these deftly combine 2D and 3D elements to create a stunning immersive look, the job mechanics of Final Fantasy V, and a somewhat old-school turn-based battle system that expands on some of Four Heroes' concepts without being as hands-off or punishing about it, Parish wrote. Despite its name, Bravely Default really is the sort of Final Fantasy experience gamers have been clamoring for. Holy shit! How good does that sound? Paper what? Where's my copy of Bravely Default? I want to play this fantastic amalgamation of Final Fantasy classics. And speaking of which, when am I going to get Persona 4 Golden? What about the next Etrian Odyssey? Hey, Ni no Kuni looks pretty sweet too. See what I mean? I often wonder if our ability to enjoy entertainment is hampered by the constant buzzing in our brains about what's coming next. And I often worry that being excited about a game I don't have yet is more fun than playing something I do. Granted, working for Kotaku gives me far more exposure to exciting new video games than your average gamer. Not only do I read and experience everything there is to read and experience about what's coming out in the near future, I tell other people all about them. And I play a role in encouraging people to fixate on what's new. But even before I started keeping up on the 24/7 cycle of video game news, I was always addicted to anticipation. The other day, a friend of mine emailed me with a link to a Google document. On it, he had written his entire backlog of video games that he had purchased but never played, from L.A. Noire to Legend of Zelda Spirit Tracks. The title of the document, A Personal, Never-Ending Hell. My first reaction was not to empathize, but to wonder how much worse my version would be. Maybe you've got something similar, a Steam library full of games you've bought and forgotten. Boy, that's true. Purchased during cheap summer sales and immediately left to collect digital dust. Or a stack of discs next to your television with a note next to them, to play, as if you ever will. Or maybe it's Amazon. I bought Star Ocean The Last Hope on Amazon yesterday when it was on sale for $8. The Last Hope is generally reviled by RPG fans as a mediocre game and horrific abuse of the Star Ocean title. But come on, $8? Will I ever open it? Who knows? I just couldn't resist the call. An RPG I haven't played yet. Super cheap. Brand new. Add it to the pile. Even with these backlogs, these shelves full of discs and hard drives full of games we know we'll never have time to play, we still continue to look to the future. We're searching for something, chasing something, like heroin addicts hunting for black tar to shoot into their veins. We are constantly looking to get our fix, and we're never satiated. We can never fill that hole. Not to get all depressing on you, but how many times have you purchased a new game only to find that it has lost your interest because something bigger and better is on the horizon? How many games in your library have you finished? How many times have you stopped playing after just a few hours because some tantalizing new siren is chanting your name? So let this be a call to you, to me, to anyone who feels like they're constantly looking to the future for new things to experience. Let's take more time to appreciate what we have. Let's look through our backlogs, pour over our shelves. Let's spend a little less time in the future and a little more time in the present. Now, I like that. And I can, in some ways, that is so incredibly descriptive of me. I mean, talk about a Steam library full of games that I've never touched, let alone I never even downloaded them. You know, they're just like sitting there. Yeah. I don't know. You know, this, I think it's touching on something overall. Like maybe it's this whole dopamine addiction thing to where, oh, I got a new game. Okay, I got it. I'm good. Let's move on. You know, that some people are talking about now that Facebook causes, you know, maybe it's some kind of like almost a gambling problem or something. Who knows? But I don't think it's as serious. But it is an industry, technology in general. You know, it is actually kind of, it is tough in a way to do a technology podcast that I do, or like many others do, because technology is changing all the time. The digital realm, you know, it takes a lot of work, but I mean, you can just put results out there really, really fast, and there's just this never ending stream of new updates for who knows what, and it's always out there. And I like the idea of what Jason's trying to say here, to just let's slow down a little bit. Okay, and let's actually play some of these games. And I think part of it, I wonder if this is happening with younger gamers. Because there was a time where I can remember in the late 80s and early 90s, you know, the best time in the world, not just for me, but for the world, where I could go to like Price Chopper and I could rent video games, and I could pretty well play almost every video game to ever come out. You know, I mean, you know, with plenty of free time, I could play like just tons of games. And I think that fact that like, yeah, I need to be able to play everything so that I can like discuss it with my friends and all that. I think that aspect may be a holdover, because now games are like, you know, especially when you add in achievements and all this stuff, you know, you could play the same game and to 100% complete the game, 100% get every achievement, do all that stuff. You could do 100, 200 hours easy, you know, on almost any game, on the most simplest of games. I mean, like, talk about a simple game, Super Meat Boy, you know, simple in execution anyway. You know, you could do 100 hours easy trying to get an A+ on every level and all this stuff. So, you know, there's something to consider there. And so, but we feel like, oh, no, we got to jump on the next big thing so that we can share, that we can have this collective experience, you know, with other gamers and all that. And I understand that too. You want to connect with people. That makes sense. So, but I do wonder if it's just that holdover for slightly old, and I know Jason Schreier. I mean, you know, he's a guy, you know, he's pushing 30, and so he'd still be kind of part of that generation where, yeah, you know, every big game you could kind of play, and you had the time to really go through each game. Now it's like, you know, I remember in 2011 there were so many games coming out in November you couldn't keep track, like Brink, Battlefield 3, the new Call of Duty, Duke Nukem Forever. You know, there's just and there was the Rage, I think, by ID Software or id. There was tons of games that all came out at once, and you go like, holy, how can I play all these? I can't, but I want to play them all. So I agree with Jason. Why don't we take a look at our backlog for a little while, because those games will be there. The new games will be there, and we can catch up with that later. So take a look at the backlog and let's play some classics. I'll be back with more.
Are you searching for a mouth-watering, all-natural, sweet and sticky treat? What if I told you it was also made by a chef who believes in freedom, just like you? You're not dreaming. This is real. Head over to mandrik.com. That's MANDRIK.com. There, you'll find Georgia's famous baklava in classic and dark chocolate flavors. To those with special health needs, Georgia's famous baklava also has a treat for you. Golden delicious, low-carb, gluten-free almond cookies. Order with PayPal or Bitcoins. In just a few days, your sweet treats will await you right at your doorstep. One more time, that's MANDRIK.com for Georgia's famous baklava. Hacker Stories.
It is time for Hacker Stories, where we talk about some of the real heroes in the world, hackers, or we talk about security issues in general. And oh boy, security news is all over the place. And hopefully, unless there's something like really huge that comes out, this is the last time that I'll probably talk about Prism. This story is from July 2nd, and it's from RT.com. Director of National Intelligence apologizes to senators for lying about NSA spying. Oh boy. U.S. Director of National Intelligence James Clapper has sent a letter to senators in which he apologizes for providing erroneous information on NSA data collection, but the director is still under scrutiny for his inconsistent statements. In late June, Clapper wrote a letter to the Senate Intelligence Committee to correct his response to a question he was asked during a March 12 hearing. When asked by Senator Ron Wyden whether the National Security Agency collected data on millions of Americans, Clapper lied to Congress and said the NSA does not do this. No, sir, not wittingly. There are cases where they could inadvertently perhaps collect, but not wittingly, he said in March. But that's March 2013, of course, but after NSA leaker Edward Snowden revealed the NSA's controversial surveillance programs in June, Clapper told NBC News that he gave the least untruthful answer possible at the hearing and said the question he was asked was unfair. He said it was akin to being asked when he was going to stop beating his wife. But now the National Intelligence Director is telling another story. In a failed attempt to minimize criticism against him, Clapper sent a letter to the Senate Intelligence Committee on June 21st stating that his response was clearly erroneous, for which I apologize. He claims that he misunderstood the original question. I've thought long and hard to recreate what went through my mind at that time, he says in the letter, parts of which were first published by the Washington Post. But rather than claim the firestorm revolving around his lie to Congress, the apology has just added fuel to the fire. Clapper's latest allegation that he misunderstood the question contradicts what he said earlier about deliberately trying to provide the least untruthful answer. Senator Wyden on Monday said that Clapper's office privately admitted that his answer to the NSA question was wrong, but did not publicly correct himself until June 21st. Again, this is back in March of 2013, after Snowden had already leaked the information. Additionally, Wyden claims that Clapper was given the question a full day ahead of time so that he would be able to prepare his answer. So that he would be prepared to answer, I sent the question to Director Clapper's office a day in advance. After the hearing was over, my staff and I gave his office a chance to amend his answer, Wyden said in a statement published on his website, which indicates that Clapper could not possibly have been taken by surprise by the question. Numerous lawmakers have criticized intelligence officials, including Clapper, for misleading them about NSA surveillance. A bipartisan group of 26 senators last week wrote to Clapper to complain that the Obama administration is relying on a secret body of law for its domestic surveillance programs. We are convinced that by depending on secret interpretations of the Patriot Act that deferred from an intuitive reading of the statute, this program essentially relied for years on a secret body of law, the lawmakers wrote. This and misleading statements by intelligence officials have prevented our constituents from evaluating the decisions that their government was making and will unfortunately undermine trust in government more broadly. Days before Clapper sent his apologetic letter, Senator Rand Paul also directly accused the intelligence director of lying and suggested that he may not be able to continue serving in his position. Now Clapper is once again facing accusations of lying with his apology, contradicting his previous statement and information released by Senator Wyden. I imagine this comes at absolutely no surprise to anybody, that Director Clapper, would just straight up lie to senators. And in fact, here's part of the problem. Okay, not that I consider the United States government my government. I don't consider any government my government. I govern myself. But here's the problem. I'm going to go into the we context, we meaning the United States, because that's where I inhabit. we supposedly elect officials, and we elect them by voting, by, and who, whoever wins the voting process is supposedly, that's the person that we wanted to represent us. So, but if our intelligence agencies, if United States intelligence agencies can lie to the government that we elected that's supposed to represent us, but that intelligence agency is an arm of the government that we supposedly elected to represent us and to keep us safe and protect our liberties and all that, what is going on here? How can they, well, and I know what the immediate answer would be by, say, a conservative or any statist. They would say, it's like, well, but they got to keep us safe. No, wait a minute. There's people that I elect and choose personally that are supposed to help keep me safe. And I expect them to have all the proper information. But if they don't, then I'm not being represented, and my interests aren't being looked out for, and I'm not being protected. So then, should we, in this case, should we just eliminate the Senate and, maybe get rid of the legislative, get rid of all of it? And let's just, could we elect directors of national intelligence agencies then? Let's just do it straight up. If they're the ones that actually have all the information, and if they're the ones that decide, who knows what and what knows who, let's just elect them now. Because clearly our senators don't mean anything. Okay, now hopefully I'm done with the whole we thing. But here's another problem I really have. Director Clapper said that at the hearing, he said the question that he was asked was unfair. He said it was akin to being asked when he was going to stop beating his wife. Wait a minute. So asking this guy a question about the NSA is like asking a question about his private life? You're a public official. You don't have a private life. Or this business is, you can have a private life, but this business isn't private life. You're a public official. This is public business. I don't care how top secret it is. It has to do with protecting the public. This isn't your private life. This is your job. That nobody's bothered by him saying that? That this is like him saying, when am I going to stop beating his wife? Those are two totally different things. That's not even close. It's not akin at all. I'm shocked. I can't believe it. And the guy, and it just keeps going. It goes on and on and on. What these people are saying. And again, you're not represented. You can't be represented. Your representatives don't have the information. They don't have all the information. They're being straight up lied to. Yeah, this is unbelievable. And, why am I not seeing, and I should be seeing it somewhere because it should be that big a deal. I should be seeing, people posting saying, get rid of the NSA, fire all these people, get them out of here. We don't know what they're doing. They're not taking care of me because they're straight up lying to me. They're not doing, you know what I mean? And nobody's saying that. Instead, people are, this has to come from the RT, from Russia Today. It has to come from Russia. You want to talk about irony in that the only place you're getting the truth from is the people that quote unquote Americans were fighting in the Cold War. That's irony. Whatever. Russians are fine people. I have no problem with Russians. In fact, by and large, if I can be collectivist, I like them quite a bit. But anyway, this is madness. This is absolute madness. Get rid of your government. I'll be back with more.
Oh, yeah.
This is Stephanie Murphy, Sovryn Tech Producer. You may know me from this show, but did you know that I have my own podcast? It's called Porc Therapy. Porc Therapy is a bit different from other shows. We cover current events, big ideas, and even relationship issues, all through the lens of how we can get more freedom in our lives. Oh, and you'll love Sex and Science Hour. Join me on my website, porctherapy.com. That's porctherapy.com. Now back to Sovryn Tech.
What are you doing? I can't believe I caught you again. You know, Jesus doesn't approve of this little habit of yours.
I know, baby, I know it's wrong, but it feels so right.
Well, it ain't.
But I've been doing it since I was 12 years old.
It's nothing but a sinful perversion of nature, if you ask me.
But baby, I don't ever want to stop looking at tech websites, new gadgets, video games, software, or any of that stuff.
Well, then I'm leaving.
Okay. Bye.
Pick of the week.
It is time for Pick of the Week, where I get to talk about whatever it is I want to talk about. I'll pick sometimes a topic. This week it's going to be a topic, but sometimes it could be a comic book, could be a movie, could be a piece of hardware, could be anything. Could be a TV show, could be a book, could be an album, a new album, which, by the way, the new Black Sabbath album, 13, with Ozzy back. I don't really like Ozzy Black Sabbath, but awesome album. Ronnie James Dio is dead, so I have to go with second best, and second best is Ozzy. Anyway, going ahead. So this week will be a topic, and it's an interesting topic, and it's a topic that in a lot of ways relates to intellectual property, or IP, as a lot of anarchist and intellectual circles call it. And IP is pretty, it's pretty important, and it's one that's actually, IP is pretty hotly debated in liberty circles. There's a lot of people that really support it and say, no, yeah, IP is totally legit. And, obviously I disagree. I think IP does nothing but harm everyone, including the product or the ideas that it's trying to protect. But anyway, this week I want to talk about fan edits. And what are fan edits? Fan edits, it's generally for movies, but it can really be anything. I suppose it could be audio work too, but in this case I'm mainly talking about movies. And fan edits are where someone, some fan of a movie will, make a digital copy of the film. Maybe a TV show or something, but they'll make a copy of the film, and then, they'll open up, the Adobe Creative Suite, or they'll open up something on Apple or even on Linux, and they will re-edit the film to where maybe it flows better, or maybe they'll take deleted scenes that got released on the Blu-ray or DVD, and they'll reincorporate those deleted scenes, or they'll cut out entire sections, of something, and they'll try and make the film that they want to see, that they like better. And I gotta say, almost every fan edit I've ever seen, I did like better than the original film. And if it's a movie that gets a fan edit, usually it's a pretty big deal, and so it's a very memorable movie, so you should be, one can usually really easily tell the difference in the edits. A very popular series of films to get fan edited is Star Wars, and those may be the most popular fan edits ever, and we'll talk about one of those in a minute. But in those, the Star Wars movies, I know quite literally word for word. I've watched them so many times, even episode 1. I love episode 1. So does Robert Murphy, by the way. That's a little side note there. But, but that, I've seen that one hundreds or if not thousands of times, to where, when something's changed, I notice. Like, in fact, every time, George Lucas essentially does his own fan edits of the Star Wars films. He keeps coming out with special editions. Now that Disney owns them, that probably won't happen. But he does like special editions where he puts in new scenes and all this stuff to make it better. So even the creators of films a lot of times are like director's cuts. Those are essentially fan edits. Just in this case, it's not a director's cut, it's a fan cut, which is cool. I think that's great. And they don't make any money off of it, though. A lot of times I would love to send these people a donation. One really popular one that I mentioned a little bit is actually, it's called the Phantom Edit, and it's for Star Wars Episode 1. And what it was all about, this is kind of the first time, because this happened, in the early 2000s, the early aughts, and so, not everybody had a computer then that could really do this kind of great work, this kind of really intensive work of editing films. Not everybody had that on their desktop at home. So it was kind of rare back then, but the guy edited it, and what he wanted is he wanted Jar Jar Binks. He wanted him gone from Star Wars history entirely. And I can understand that, because Jar Jar was really annoying. Really annoying. And there's people who felt that the character was even racist. I could understand that too. And Jar Jar just didn't really add anything to it. And a lot of people say, well, Jar Jar is what made it a kid's film, and it was meant to be a film more for younger audiences. First off, no, Episode 1, as much as I love it, Episode 1 was not meant for younger audiences. That is absolute bullshit. Okay, all you have to do is watch 30 seconds of the movie, and that means, yes, just the opening crawl of credits where it tells you the story that's going on, and you just know instantly that movie is not for kids. Okay, so to put Jar Jar in was just a ridiculous, in my opinion, as a fan, a ridiculous idea. Because, what does the opening credits say? It's like, well, the Trade Federation, during a trade embargo on the planet Naboo, what the hell does a little kid know about a trade embargo? That's... No. That's just not so. That's not a movie for kids. Sweet cream on an ice cream sandwich. That's just not for kids. And so the Phantom Edit fixed all that, and it actually ended up being a really, really great film. It worked out really, really well. There was another edit done for Episode 2 to eliminate Jar Jar more. Episode 3, Jar Jar wasn't even really there. So I haven't really seen any edits for Episode 3, but Episode 3 was so good, I don't think there was a need for an edit. And I think everybody else recognized that. So fan edit, and you can find these on torrent sites, and we talked about great ways to torrent earlier in the show. If you're wondering how to do that, Ttorrent Pro, check it out, on Android. And, so what you get is that you get these films that, that just can be a little bit better, or they can be a little more to your taste, and that's fine that the director makes the film the way they want to. That's okay. If George Lucas wants his film to be that way, he doesn't make Star Wars for you. He makes it for him. And that's great. Go for it, man. But if a fan wants to make it a little better, go ahead and do it. And there's people that want to sue these fan editors who aren't making a penny off of this, unfortunately, off these labors of love. There's people that want to sue these guys, for what? So they took your work and they made it a little more to their liking. It's not like it's going to be at Walmart, even though maybe it should be. One of the best things I like about fan edits too is actually making extended versions of the films. Like, you have all these deleted scenes. A lot of these times I don't understand why these deleted scenes don't make it into the movies. That's kind of a cliche statement, but really, I don't know why they don't make it in. And one of my favorite, here's two of my favorite fan edits of all time. One is for Star Trek the Motion Picture, and there's one out there, I think it's called the Warp Re-Edit. And what they did is there's actually 3 different versions of Star Trek the Motion Picture out there, which is, by the way, my favorite Star Trek movie. And for that, there was the one that got released in theaters. Then there's the one that got released on television. Those are 2 different ones, and there's some very specific scenes that are missing from both of them. And then this beautiful, a few years ago, they released this beautiful director's cut on DVD. And they did a whole new CGI scenes for this. They really went all out to make this. But oddly enough, this director's cut out scenes that were in both of the previous versions. Which was just kind of strange, but Robert Wise was involved. It was totally legit. It was real, and it's definitely it was my favorite version of the film, no doubt about it. But what this was, this Warp Re-Edit, they took all the scenes. They just took everything and they put it all together in one, and it's beautiful. And it's a long film, and a lot of people say it's very boring. It's boring without all the deleted scenes in it. I totally disagree. And this just makes it just an even 10 times a more complete film, and so you're getting a more complete experience. Now the other one, and this is one, I mean, a lot of people don't like Star Trek motion picture, fine, but this fan edit, this is amazing, and it's by a guy called Spice Driver. And if you can torrent it, if you can type in Dune Spice Driver, hopefully you'll find this. And what it is, it's a fan edit of the 1984 was it 84? Yeah. Movie Dune. Now, there's a couple versions of this. There's a theatrical version, and then there's what's called the Alan Smithy version. The theatrical version is just under 2 hours long. The Alan Smithy version is about 2 hours and 45 minutes long, because they filmed, according to Frank Herbert with the movie Dune, they filmed some odd 6 hours of footage. A lot of that is probably gone. If you bought the Blu-ray or the DVD version that had come out of Dune in recent years, there's some talks with some of the De Laurentiis family who said that there's a bunch of the stuff that's just missing. And with the Spice Driver edit of Dune, the movie's in almost 4 hours long now. And it's a great movie. The world, I love what Harlan Ellison says about Dune. He said the world just wasn't ready for a movie like that. And it's still not. And I totally agree with him. The world is not ready for Dune. In fact, the people that enjoy the movie Dune, if they like the movie Dune, that says a whole lot about that person. You're getting so many things on so many levels, because that is such a really advanced movie. There's so many intricate things going on throughout it. It is just a masterpiece of film. I mean, the book's my favorite book of all time, probably. And the movie just totally, really, in my opinion, lives up to it, may even enhance it a little bit, because it ends a lot better than the book does, where the book just ends up talking about wives, which is kind of crazy. But the movie has a great ending, great score. The music from Dune is absolutely amazing. And so you have this, again, you'd never get this. You would have never, ever gotten this, because the original director, David Lynch, to even get the extended version that you could watch on the Sci-Fi Channel in the 90s, which was the Alan Smithy version, when a film says Alan Smithy is the director, that's because the director is so embarrassed they don't want anything to do with the film. So David Lynch has no interest in ever touching Dune again. You're not going to get a director's cut from him. I mean, maybe it's some miracle, but you're not going to get anything from him. And yet the Alan Smithy version is really, if you watch it and you compare it to the theatrical version, it's kind of a mess. The nice thing about the Alan Smithy version is it explains everything that's going on a little better, but usually you'll just want to watch the theatrical version just to get the cleaner cut, and to get your kind of quick fix of Dune if you have to watch it that many times, which I did. I used to watch it all at least maybe once a week. And but with the Spice Driver version, the kind of the flaws in the Alan Smithy version are gone, but it's still longer. There's a lot of deleted scenes are put in there. Now you can tell when, with some of the deleted scenes, you can really tell they're deleted scenes. And this happens a lot with fan edit movies, because the quality's not up. Is not up to it. It's not like with Star Wars. When you buy the Star Wars saga, on the DVDs, there's deleted scenes. George Lucas actually he shelled out the gelt. He paid the money to get those scenes, the effects in those scenes, finished. You're not going to get that with a lot of fan edits. Some you will, but not all. And the deleted scenes, you're going to know when they're deleted scenes. But it's so precious to have those complete films for once. With everything that was ever filmed, that was obviously part of the story. Otherwise, they wouldn't have filmed it. Really, really exciting and well done. So check it out. The Dune Spice Driver version, Star Trek motion picture. Just type in fan edit when you go to Pirate Bay or Kick-Ass Torrents, and I'm sure you're going to find something you love. There's tons of it out there, and it's all good. This has been Sovryn Tech. I'll be back with more next week. Love you.
This has been Sovryn Tech. Visit us at sovryntech.com. That's SOVRYN tech.com. There you can connect with us, see more of what you've heard on today's show, and catch our podcast feed. Sovryn Tech is open source. We encourage you to share. Later, nerds.